me right now here in studios, Pete Seat, former White House spokesman for President George W. Bush, and Maura Gillespie, former press advisor to then Speaker of the House John Boehner, and more recently Adam Kinzinger. It's great to see you guys. Okay, first and foremost, what do you think is really going on here? Not just with Matt Gaetz, but with the internal fights are now, I mean, they're trying to eat their own in a primary.
Right. And I mean, when I worked for John Boehner, he was known for having a policy against even getting involved in these kind of, you know, incumbent versus incumbent matchups. And so it's interesting that Speaker Johnson is speaking out on this. I'm glad that he is kind of trying to get a handle on his razor-thin majority that he currently has and encouraging members to knock it off. I mean, they need to, right? This is not helpful to him or to the Republican conference at all.
Does knock it off seem to, is it going to work? I mean, is just saying it even, saying it publicly and saying don't campaign against each other is one thing. Is it going to work from what you have seen with how this party is operating in the House?
Well, not with Matt Gaetz. There's nothing that Matt Gaetz loves more than a television camera, and this gets him the attention that he craves and the attention that he seeks. He and his little merry band of troublemakers want to put us Republicans on the fast track to the minority. And I really do believe that.
Why do you believe that?
I don't think they want to win, because winning means you have to have ideas. And they would rather just complain about Democrats, complain about the way things are going.
They're in the majority now.
And I don't think they like it. I mean, look at what they did to Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, I really think they prefer, he does, not every Republican in the caucus, prefers to be in the minority. It's easier that way.
It's easier to complain.
Right.
It's easier to complain than it is to lead. And we've seen that.
What's a bigger challenge for Republicans this cycle then? Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, since we have seen that hasn't proven helpful in any cycle since he got himself elected down ballot, or what we're seeing here with Republicans in the House. What do you think is the bigger challenge for the Republicans in Congress?
I do think it's Donald Trump at the top of the ticket. His stances he's taken on things like abortion and other things that Republicans in Congress have taken aren't going to win them a general election. Comments like he's made over the weekend are not going to help him in a general election. You know, stoking fear and baiting to the far right flank of the party, sure, that gets you applauses at a crowd that is MAGA to the extreme, but you're not going to get people who are maybe not as outspoken, but sure do care about a lot of these issues. You're not going to get them to your side of the ballot box.
This kind of leads right into Donald Trump and his rhetoric. The same continues. Donald Trump talking about a bloodbath over the weekend if he's not elected, a bloodbath for the auto industry and more, you can assume. Trump calling migrants animals and saying some aren't even people. This shows that Donald Trump is leaning in to his instincts and shows that he's not leaning into the middle, as one would generally assume in bygone days one does for a general when you turn to a general election. And this tells you what, Pete, about the next 30 plus weeks?
It's going to be what it has been from day one. It's deja vu all over again. We went through this exact same routine with this exact same language about MS-13 gangs not being people, being animals. We did this in 2017. We did it again in 2018. Words matter, and Donald Trump knows that, but he is very skilled at conflating issues and not being precise in his language. And you can hear what you want to hear. Nancy Pelosi, the Biden campaign, they're hearing one thing today. Republicans are hearing a completely different thing, and it's putting Republicans in that hot seat. And they're going to be there between now and November if he keeps this up, and I have no reason to believe he won't.
Let me play something, not of the comments that he made over the weekend, but in an interview with Howard Kurtz, he was asked about his rhetoric. Trump was asked about this. Let me play what he said.
It also gets people thinking about very important issues, that if you don't use certain rhetoric, if you don't use certain words that maybe are not very nice words, nothing will happen. That did stir debate.
No one pays attention unless you use the words that he's using, is what he's saying. I mean, do you think words matter? Should words matter? Yes. But do you think words matter in this moment, in this election cycle? And what do you think of how he kind of is characterizing it?
I do think it matters. And I mean, we've seen it again. You pointed out earlier, we as Republicans have not won with Donald Trump as the top of our ticket. We have not won with him at the helm of the Republican Party. So his words and how he behaves does matter. And again, like I said, the people who are on the far right, they may be, jazzed up over it, but it certainly isn't helping us get any wins. It's certainly not helping us get legislative wins. But I also would point out that for people who are in favor of Donald Trump, roles reversed, how would you feel if a Joe Biden was out here saying those things? Would you be up in arms and would you be all upset about what he was saying? Yes, you would be. So people are just really struggling to not see the hypocrisy, and I find that to be the most frustrating part about all of this.
It's great to see you guys. I hope you're not frustrated here today. It's great to see you guys. Thank you so much.